the Social Security cost of living adjustment for 2025 is going to be 2.5%. So we will talk about that. And I also want to talk about something else. You guys heard I think it was my last podcast that I did. I basically laid out how I now go about voting. Election season still is in full swing right now. And so are the insults on both sides, going right and left, online, social media, you name it. You almost can't go anywhere without hearing someone's opinion on what's going on. And I had a few people that messaged me or let me know that they still thought I was wrong on how I was going about that. So I want to revisit this a little bit, guys, because it's kind of crazy sometimes how you can just say someone is wrong on how they're doing it. And because here's why. I'm going to try to summarize what I said in my last podcast right here. And it was basically that I'm just assume that everybody at that level of politics is going to be questionably moral, right? They're going to have questionable morals, and none of us know whether or not something that comes out in the news is 100% true or 100% false. Maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe there's not any truth to it. We don't know. Nobody this far removed from Washington, D.C. is going to know exactly what happened. And yet that seems to be all we ever argue about online or whatever, is all this stuff that none of us really are going to ever have the full story on what they do. And so what I would like to do instead is bake all of that into the cake and just assume that every single person that we vote for at that level of politics is going to have questionable morals, so that now we can ignore all of that noise, ignore all of the insults that are thrown back and forth at the different ones, and just vote based on their policy. And then you can figure out, all right, so if I'm going to ignore all of that and I just vote on policy, now I have to figure out what my values are. What is most important to me? And for example, let's say I have value 1 through 6, and let's just throw some of those out there. Let's say, I'm a financial advisor, so the economy is really important. Low taxes is important. A strong military is important. Strong borders are important. And then we can get into abortion rights, and then we can get into, social issues like maybe LGBTQ plus rights. And let's say that those are the 6 that I have, the 6 values that I'm going to vote based off of, right? Well, now I can look at the policies that these candidates are going to put forward. And let's say that candidate A is going to be, in my opinion, going to be stronger on my value 1, 2, and 3, but candidate B is going to be better on, say, 4, 5, and 6. Well, guess what? That means I'm voting for candidate A, because in the order of importance for me, 1, 2, and 3 is more important than 4, 5, and 6. Now, if my values 4, 5, and 6 were better under candidate A, well, then I'd have to vote for candidate B. So that's how I do it. All right. And I've had several people that still wanted to argue the very things I said I wasn't going to listen to. And I want to read a couple of them now. I am definitely not going to be word for word of some of the stuff that has been said to me, because some of the stuff has some expletives, and I'm going to leave those out. But I have received things like, how can you vote for, let me pull it up here. How can you vote for, I'm going to say both. And remember, this is not me saying this. This is things that have been said to me about what I've said about how I vote. Still, how can you vote for Trump? He is this is where we've got some bleepities, right? Convicted felon. Also, they call him sexist. He's racist. He's a fascist. He's a Nazi. But then you've got Kamala Harris, and they say that how can you be so, negative, or not negative, but like neutral. And basically, is it neutral? So now, so I've got people on the right and the left that are mad at me. They're telling me I'm too neutral because Kamala's a communist. If you got any kids in the room right now, you might want to put on earmuffs here. They'll say that she slept her way to the top. Again, not my words. Other people that have said that to me. Other people have said that she's not very intelligent. Other people have said that she's a DEI hire. Not my words. All right. So I'm just saying those are the two sides that I have had that have both been yelling at me based off of what I said. When I told them I'm not paying attention to that, and yet what's the very thing that they're still trying to argue about? It is those very things that I said I'm not going to listen to, And so it's funny that that's still the only thing that we have to argue about. In any of the negative or expletive remarks that were said, still not one of them talked about policy. not one single one of them talked about policy. And as I said, that's all I'm going to pay attention to at this point, right? So again, and now the same thing for anybody here. If my values 1, 2, and 3 are basically, let's say my 1, 2, and 3 are what your 4, 5, and 6, or excuse me, your 4, 5, and 6 are my 1, 2, and 3, whatever it is, right? And so if I'm voting based on my first 3 values, but your first 3 values happen to be different than mine, let's say your first 3 values happen to be 4, 5, and 6 for me, well, that means you have to vote for candidate B. If you think the candidate B is going to be better on those values are higher in your order than what they were in mine. And so now you vote for that. That's it. That's how that works. So it's been fun seeing the response that I've had from some people. And again, this is just one of those things. I get like none of those were any of my clients that said those things. So luckily that's, when you're out on the internet or the podcast world, you're going to get anybody hiding behind a keyboard. You can't actually see their face. And they're just, in my opinion, a bunch of cowards that are slinging mud at everybody. Anyway, so we get away from that now. That's how I'm doing it. Want to lay that to rest. And let's just talk about the Social Security cost of living adjustment now. So the Social Security Administration, it will go up 2.5% in 2025. And that's based on inflation data that they had through for the third quarter through September. Now, it was released October 10th by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it also said that the 2025 COLA, it is a little bit smaller than 2024's. 2024 was about 3.2%, and that followed a near record increase of 8.7% in 2023. And the 2.5% figure is actually more in line with what the average has been. It's near average. The average over the past 20 years has been about 2.6%. So it's about 0.1% below what the average has been. But if you think about the last 3 years, definitely the last 3 years have been higher than that 2.6% average. So that's the good news, I guess. We are getting a raise on our Social Security. The bad news is according to AARP, the premium for our Medicare Part B that is right now sitting at about $174, almost $175 for the year, for the monthly premiums, that is going to rise to $185 a month. And so if you think about just what the average check is, most recipients are going to receive about $10.20 as an actual effective raise. So enjoy your $10 a month that you're going to be netting from this Social Security increase. Right now, that might buy somewhere between like 1 and 2 pounds of ground beef. So here's an extra pound or pound and a half of ground beef for the entire month that you can now buy. So there you go. So anyway, that's the cost of living adjustment. However, there is some good news for those of my listeners that are in Kansas. So 2024 marks the very first year that there will no longer be state income tax levied against Social Security. So now there is only 9 states that are left that are actually still going to tax Social Security at the state level, and Kansas is no longer one of those. So that is good news. We are getting a little bit of a raise, and we don't have to pay tax on that Social Security to Kansas. So effectively, that actually, for those of us that are in Kansas and receiving Social Security, that would be a little bit more than that $10 a month raise, because now none of that has to go to Uncle Sam at the state level. So that is also good news. Now, what does all that mean? That means, well, first off, if we go to the political side, let's just, stop talking about all the stuff that people think may have happened, and that's what they're basing their decisions on. Let's get back to actually having real conversations face to face with people, because I've seen people that will use language towards someone online that they would never use while they're face to face with the person. And also, you cannot hear tone of voice when you are looking at a piece of text online. So you don't actually know what emotion someone had when they said whatever it was that they said. And it seems like most people will always attach a negative or an angry connotation or emotion to whatever is written about any other side. So let's keep that out. As far as the Social Security goes, mixed, right? I mean, some good news, some bad news, a little bit more good news for those that are in Kansas, because we're no longer being taxed at the state level on the Social Security. So that's great. if you guys have any questions on how, the Social Security cost of living might affect you, or possible Social Security insolvency of the trust fund here in about 10 years or so, depending on which, survey that you read, whether it's 2034, 2032, or whatever, we got roughly 8 to 10 years when they're expecting that to happen. If you have any questions about how that might even impact your retirement, or whether or not, if that happens, if that would be detrimental to your income plan in retirement, just reach out to us. We can, we've got at least a 15-minute phone call that you'll be able to find in a link there. And if we find that we need to talk a little bit more about some of those concerns, then we can go ahead and schedule another time to get together. But we just want to make sure that you guys are able to live the retirements that you want to live. And our job is to bring you more and more information to help empower you to live the retirement you deserve. So with that being said, a little short and sweet this week. Look forward to talking to you again next week and beyond. Happy election season.